Alright. Continuing with our reading of Dallas Pimiento, a book I wrote many years ago. This is book 3 of Dallas Pimiento. It's called Bronchodilator. And we begin with a piece called The Young Olivier, All Too Rare. Ambidexterity, for so many years cursed as a sign of the devil's favor, is now making a comeback in the Fleetbush household. As cousin Spokane Fleetbush, Aunt Berturdla's son, sat watching John Witherspoon perform yet another hilarious stand-up routine. He stirred his chrysanthemum tea with his left hand. The maid, a leftover from the days of old Colonel Fleetbush, shuddered in horror at the sight from her hiding place inside the false grandfather clock. "He'll be summoning the devil's red wife before equinox," she later warned the frankly contemptuous kitchen staff. Nandine, stirring the beans with both her hands, clutching the big wooden spoon, released one to make the crazy swirling motion at her temple. Everyone juggled, and the old maid, Bobra by name, was driven from the room, but Cindy Buttons, the egg girl, having had her laugh along with the rest, ceased laughing before the others, and pondered the origins of the swirling finger at the temple motion. Did it begin with the invention of the clockwork mechanism, she asked herself, and if so, did it indicate an understanding on the part of earlier peoples of the obvious similarity between the human brain and the workings of a clock? "You shouldn't be working as an egg girl," Tacoma Fleetbush, at 19, the youngest member of the family and a friend of Cindy's, told the latter when she was told these ruminations. "You should be going to college, studying philosophy." "And then what would I do?" Cindy asked. "One can't care for a sick mother while studying philosophy." "No, I suppose not," Tacoma agreed. The gulf between their two circumstances was once more shown to her. It made her uncomfortable. To dispel this vision, she took down a handful of books from a shelf. "Take these," she told Cindy. "They're philosophy books. Maybe you can't go to college just yet, but you can still study on your own." "The others will think I stole them," Cindy protested. "No. I'll write an inscription on the flyleaf for you, proving that they're yours now." Cindy took her new books downstairs. When Barbara saw them, she opened one and saw Tacoma's script. She fell back, clutching her heart. "It's written with the left hand," she cried. "I haven't had a Coca-Cola in years. Blessed creature, to be chosen to pull the magic box through the transom of memory." The many bracelets on the old woman's wrist jangled as she patted the neck of the little goat. The old woman straightened up and looked at Mr. Cosmonaut in the face. "When will the GOAT be KILLED after the ceremony?" she asked the white-robed man. "Why are you spelling the words out?" asked the normally profoundly perceptive Mr. Cosmonaut. "I don't want to alarm our animal friend here and possibly disturb the smooth unfolding of the ceremony." "Well, don't. It confuses me," Mr. Cosmonaut insisted. "Now, as to your question, why do you think the animal will be done away with?" The old man glanced at the approaching cadre of acolytes. "No time now," she said. "Here they come. Take this wax effigy of Julio Cortázar. It's packed with salt. Winter comes early this year. Remember that." She placed the crudely formed effigy in Mr. Cosmonaut's white-gloved hand and withdrew to her seat in the bleachers at the side of the dais. "Hail, Mr. Cosmonaut," the senior-most of the acolytes, distinguished from his comrades by the red sash embroidered with dozens of stylized portraits of Emile Zola about his chest, saluted Mr. Cosmonaut in the accustomed fashion, his right hand extended overhead, fingers apart. "Hail, acolyte senior-most, who is called steadily in the common tongue," Mr. Cosmonaut returned the greeting. "Is the doomed animal ready?" Steadily asked. The old woman nudged the redneck beside her. "This is it," she enthused, grinning. "What does he mean by doomed, buddy?" the goat asked Mr. Cosmonaut. "He is using symbolic language. Don't worry." Mr. Cosmonaut's reassuring smile was mostly lost within his unkempt mass of facial hair. "And keep silent during the ceremony." "All is prepared," Steadily turned and said to the audience, among whom were to be seen several members of the goat's extended family, as well as a couple of friends from his place of employment. "Glad to have abstained. An environmentalist, sitting on a portable stool in the middle of the Telenet screen store, thinks about a bag of frozen waffle-cut fried potatoes that he assumed where he had left them, in the freezer at his cliffside home. From the back of the store where the Alonzo brothers were caught shoplifting only the other day, Nelson Givnema, a junior member of the sales team, approaches the area where the environmentalist, whose name is Manx Lapution, sits. He wears the blue and yellow polo shirt of conformity with little of the discomfort that junior members usually feel. It would seem to one unfamiliar with the dried cattle turd of reality that such a fellow is surely bound for an executive position with Terminal Transaction, the company in whose story has up until now taken place. In another part of the ward, two men in green plastic bowlers sit at an old kitchen table and discuss the environmentalist's fate. "I like today's crop of comedians," says Romulus, the first of the two men whom we hear speak. "They really know how to milk a single joke for 8, 9, or even 10 explosions of laughter from their audiences." "You're so contemptuous of the new and young, Marty," the second man replies. He alternately shakes and nods his head over his companion's bitter dismissal of things he personally sees no problem with. "After all," the second man once told his mother, "this is the way society and culture have evolved to this point. Why not embrace life as it is? After all, isn't that what embracing life is all about?" "Oh, Mordred, you are a good boy, so full of affirmative impulses." His mother had wiped her hands on her apron and smiled. "So, Remus, do we kill the environmentalist or not?" Romulus snaps his fingers in his companion's face to draw his attention back to this moment. Mordred considers a moment, alternately shaking and nodding his head. "Yeah," he says at last, "we do it." Nelson Givnema stands before the environmentalist. "Is there anything I can help you with, sir?" he asked. "You can begin by selling products friendly to Mother Earth," is the reply. "To be honest with you, buddy," Givnema whispers, "I hate this job. Hell of a lot of bugs around this time of year." "Dead batteries," Slunder Ashabgo pronounced his judgment on the Magorgic beam interactor. He slapped the side of the device disgustedly. "So we can't contact the great eyeball?" Linda's Mary stated, more than questioned, although I have appended a question mark to her statement due to the slight questioning lilt she imparted to her words. You know what I mean. "No," Ashabgo confirmed, "and the great eyeball can't find us." He stood up and faced the ocean. Everyone in the group digested this information silently, all except Marvin. He was a noisy eater. "I feel like primitive man," he said. Even primitive man had his omniscient gods," Kenny reminded him. "Yeah, but those weren't real." Marvin clutched his knees to his chest. He sat on the floor of the crude hut. Primitive man didn't know that. I mean, you take someone like Aquinas. "We haven't got time to take Aquinas anywhere," Shabgo interrupted angrily. He turned and faced his colleagues. "We have to reach the ruins before the rains." "Even though our expedition won't be digitally documented?" Linda's Marie asked. "Precisely. We'll just have to keep notes and write up a report when we get home the old-fashioned way." Shabgo's bucket hat, sunglasses, and beard obscured what the university's newspaper had once called the specimen of male beauty for the year. Perhaps all his determination had been born of a desire to bury that image forever. It made no difference to Linda's Marie. She still lusted after him. Too bad the witch doctor on the main island had mistakenly pair-bonded her with Marvin. She had caught him staring at her in a non-academic way. She had to keep him from figuring things out before she could counteract this curse. "Well, Slunder," Kenny, his own bucket hat embroidered with his name in the local language, addressed himself to Ashabgo. "With the professor ill with fever, you'll have to call the shots. You were his pet, after all." Ashabgo resented that and said so. What none of them knew was that Bob was an android whose synthetic brain was transmitting data back to the Great Eyeball, even as they sat debating what to do. A happy people free from British rule. "Strike the tents," Del Christ ordered the morning of the 16th. "We're leaving." Hatted Veeble couldn't believe it. They still had a week to go. "We're only halfway through this stay," he protested. Del Christ pulled his suspenders up over his shoulders. The little monkey boy, Jeremy, poured a cup of coffee and passed it to him. "Thanks." "Oh, that's good." Del Christ's mustache seemed to rise like the fur on a cat as he sipped. "We can't stay here any longer," he said to Hatted Veeble. The manager of the circus stepped down from the wagon, followed by the tall man on the top hat. No one had ever seen Hatted Veeble without his hat. "But why not? We've yet to squeeze the Methodists. They'll be arriving any day," Hatted Veeble pointed out. "Times are changing. I can feel it. I don't think we'll get the kind of reception from the revivalists that we have in the past. You were thinking of that boy the other night. Habit Veeble and Delcry stopped before the dragon's enclosure. The one that questioned the reality of the cowgirl. First time I've seen that kind of incredulity in 30 years of making the circuit. And from a child, too. You can't let that throw you. If we move now, we'll be off our itinerary. We might bump against the tail of Colonel Fleetbush's insect parade, or worst, the Cosmic Mysteries air show. Habit Veeble's eyes climbed into the sky, contemplating horrors. I've got an idea. Del Christ patted the neck of an ostrich walking by. There's a city over the mountains that's never been squeezed. Not by us, not by the Colonel, or Captain Cosma. A city? I don't know, Del Christ. Those kind of people are just too sophisticated for what we do. Veeble, I've got an idea. That ideas themselves are changing. The wants and needs of the city people are being exchanged for those of the country, and vice versa. A young boy, about as old as Delchrist had been when he first joined the circus, ran up to the two men. "Mr. Delchrist," he said, "the big elephant's sick." Delchrist and Habit Veeble hurried to deal with the situation. 4 years since the remark. It had sounded like the man in the next room said, "Frank Zappa." Brent Borden listened closely for a few seconds thereafter, but couldn't hear any other words clearly except perhaps "our family" and "make my regard." Borden dismissed it, realizing that the chances of anyone in this building discussing Frank Zappa were minuscule. He turned his attention back to the magazine article he was reading. "Don't you ever read the short fiction for which that magazine is so rightly famous?" asked Angela, who sat inside a box opposite Borden. The side of the box that faced Borden had a round, cornered glass window through which Angela could see Borden and he could see her. "I don't like to waste my time on short fiction," Borden replied. "Unless it's by an author that's known to you, and whom you like," Angela prodded the man on the sofa. "That's not entirely true. I have been known to read something by a trendy young writer, and I have avoided for the most part the short stories of most of my favorite authors, so there you have it." "You're a snob," Angela put a cowboy hat on her head. "That's a subjective term. Listen, there it is again." Borden cocked his ear to the wall behind him. "What, the man in the next room?" "Yes, I think I heard him say Frank Zappa again." Borden put the magazine on the low table before him and stood up, smoothing out his trousers and tucking his shirt in more neatly. "You can't go yet. I haven't passed judgment on you yet." Angela shook a small noose made of a shoelace at him. "I think you have," Borden countered. "I'll be right back." "Lightweight!" Angela cried as Borden left the room. In his absence, she rummaged among the array of accoutrements that lay beneath the bottom edge of the window. When Borden returned, she had drawn a mustache on her upper lip with a marker and slipped a spiky red wig over her head. "Well, what did he say?" she asked in a deep voice. He said Franz Rapper, but I didn't ask why." Borden sat down and picked up the magazine again. "You're not curious enough," Angela accused. "What will you do when the drill wonders why?" The song, which Prince wrote for Miles Davis's Tutu album, but later withdrew, was revealed in a dream to me to be a trivial piece of funk moving back and forth between B and A. A silly piano figure not unlike the beginning of Manic Monday was the recurring theme. As the song played over a loudspeaker with Freddie Hubbard standing in for Miles yet again, a line of long-legged dove bars danced about on a stage set designed in that 1970s Art Nouveau revival style we all love so much. Art Deco was an extension of Art Nouveau, I said to myself upon awakening. "Who are you talking to?" my robotic bed companion asked. "Nothing. Go back to sleep," I whispered, fumbling with the half-dozen prescription drugs that keep me functioning as other men do. And I don't mean just sexually. When I use the term men in this context, I mean mankind, although I am also conveying to you that I am a male, almost by the way. I don't identify myself primarily as a male. I get the impression that other males do. I don't think to myself, "What are you, Lansash?" I am that which has a penis. When I think about what I am, I call myself a painter, a writer, a cartoonist, a composer. I don't say, "I am an American," or "I am a Southerner," or "I am white." I tend to look down on people whose self-identification is as facile as that. I am the one who cannot relax, the one who eats a can of beans for lunch every day, the one who worries about a future that no one else even suspects. Among my list of heroes' names, you won't find that of Prince. Miles Davis is there, but not Prince. There's something fake about Prince, some refusal to admit that it's a game he's playing. I think it's a game anyway. If it's not, then Prince is in the same category of annoying people as Salvador Dali and Michael Jackson. That's not to say I don't like Prince. I do. But he's not a hero of mine. My heroes are people like Francis Bacon, Woody Allen, Frank Zappa, Georg Immendorf, Italo Calvino, Charles Saxon, Julio Cortázar, Jim Henson, and Tony Randall, not to mention Miles Davis. There are others, of course. Hero is such a vague term. Would John Lennon and Lenny Bruce rise to the level of such a term? I don't know. I admire them both a lot, but they each have so many grating flaws. All of the people I've named do. That's why ultimately the greatest hero to me is the image of myself I have, the image I'm striving to become. The sandwich wasn't as good today. Mustard had always complimented Hank's sandwiches. There was no time that he could recall that he had eaten a sandwich without the delight of some variety of mustard adorning its interior. But what of peanut butter and jelly, I hear you asking, as you turn to the painted polystyrene model of your mother and shake your wee head in disbelief. The answer to your distracting question is that Hank had never eaten a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. What? Never? You ask, mouth agape, lines of saliva running from gum to gum, and that impudent pouting lower lip quavering at the effrontery of it all. One day that lip will sag under the weight of your dead, dry tongue as you stare mindlessly out at a world that has ceased to number you as anything other than an occupant of a home for the enfeebled. So watch out. No, I say to you, no, Hank reserved his peanut butter for crackers and his jelly for toast. As he once said to Claire, the unicorn shackler's daughter, it isn't really a sandwich if you make it out of crackers. What isn't? Asked Claire. Outside her window she could see the Easter Bunny, hopping with less than the expected gracefulness, which, given that he was over 5 feet tall, was only natural, I guess. Yet she must remain indoors with this mustard-smelling old man. The foodstuffs that I prepare, Hank answered, with a mysterious twinkle in his deep-set eyes. So you've never tasted peanut butter and jelly together? She asked as she backed into the closet. Oh, I've tasted them together. I've taken a bite of my peanut butter cracker and held it in my mouth while I took a bite of my jelly toast. I've done that many times. Hank slowly withdrew a long, thin blade from a cracked leather scabbard strapped with pink yarn to his leg. And did you like it? Claire's head bumped against the bottom of the closet shelf on which were stored her board games. I hated it. I couldn't wait until the taste was out of my mouth. Hank raised the cruel blade even with his shoulder. I can hear you now. You're loudly proclaiming how good this story was. The really obscure stuff remained hidden. Special seeds flown in on an otherwise empty cargo plane were entrusted to Dallas Pimiento on the first anniversary of his resurrection from the dead. Thank you, majestic Sky Lord, he said, bowing his head humbly. You're welcome, you polite young man, the pilot returned, much impressed. These seeds were of the dreaded narco-weed known as kofanui. Ruthlessly suppressed elsewhere, the consumption of the leaves of kofanui was a treasured pastime here in the land in which Pimiento and I found ourselves. What land is this, anyway? asked Pimiento, when we had ceased giggling over our good fortune. I don't know. Why don't you go ask that lady over there? He pointed to an alert-looking old woman picking through a box of radishes. She'll think I'm crazy, not knowing where I am. I saw the flaw in the proposed plan. No, just ask her the name of the town. Then we can find it on the map. What map? There's one lining the bottom of the box the seeds came in. Pimiento pulled back a scoopful of the seeds to reveal that of which he spoke. Why don't we just look at the map, then, I asked. You still got to know the name of the town, Pimiento, or Dallas, as I was privileged to call him, pointed out. Acknowledging that was a good point, I approached the old lady. These radishes are all bad, she complained to me as I came within hearing. I nodded. Excuse me, but could you tell me what town this is? This is no town, sir, she frowned. This is a shithole. I smiled and laughed abruptly. And what is the name of this shithole? She completed my sentence. It's called Esquituttle. Esquituttle, I repeated. Thank you. You're welcome. She began heaving the radishes one by one at a herd of goats on the other side of the fence. The goats responded slowly at first, but then scattered as the radishes continued to fall among their number. A fat, sunburned man came out of the house and yelled at the woman, but not as angrily as one would expect of one who might own the radishes, the goats, or both. I don't have all day to sit here. The promenade that Dallas Pimiento and I took through the baked goods sector of what we still assumed to be Esquituttle was blessed by an overcast sky. I wish I knew how to play the saxophone, I said to myself. The great loudspeakers in the sky were playing Sam Rivers. The clouds are muffling the sound, said Dallas. I don't think we could hear the pure, unimpeded noise, I mused. A bathysphere, loaded with the turncoat's blandishments, emerged from the solitude of Minerva Minsky Memorial Fountain, its turrets emblazoned with the icon of the pastry dervish. I am breathing out of tiny specks of paper, Dallas announced suddenly. He stopped in the middle of the narrow street, intent on examining his life. These cobblestones are nothing more than oddly shaped bricks, I said aloud. Each bore the name of some local business. The crassness of it offended me. I hate Ness words, Mrs. Raines used to say. I wish that she was there to see the full panoply of a world ignorant of Puritanism. I wish that she was there to see the full panoply of a world ignorant of Puritanism. Have some apple strudel, my old teacher. May it purge your voice of its nasalness. It's all right now. Dallas put his hand on my shoulder and reassured me with a laugh. I have reverted to oxygen. I wish I knew how to play the saxophone, I said to him. Why don't you teach yourself? I'm still amazed. You taught yourself to read German. He purchased a pastry with his dirty money. Well, I had a lot of help from you. How so? You kept out of my way. Yes, but I'm back again. Do you think that will interfere with your saxophone education? Probably. But I don't have time to learn the saxophone now. He was asking himself, why not? I could tell. Before he could swallow and ask me the question, however, I had diverted his attention to the pantheon of jazz greats filling the sky. The only black men you admire are jazz musicians, Dallas indicted me. That's not true, I differed. You couldn't really call James Brown a jazz musician. All right.